Hello everybody and welcome to another tournament preview. I'm Sean Paul Clark and I'm previewing MLG, the Fall Championship happening this weekend. I tried to record it by myself before, but I made a couple mistakes, so I've brought in the guy they call Hawk Eyes, the StarCraft 2 observer at BC.
Hey Sean, it's good to be here. Hopefully you and I together can get through this. Of course, MLG is it's a good complicated format, but with our two powers combined, it should be fine.
That's right, and so within this video we're going to be looking at MLG itself and its 2012 circuit of all the stops it's had, all the different tournaments it's had. We'll have a quick look over that, some of the winners we've seen throughout the different stops. Then we'll zoom in a little bit and look more specifically over at the MLG Fall Championship, the tournament that's actually happening this weekend. Then we'll have a look at the schedule of games going to be played at what time they'll start and so on, which game's going to be number one. And then finally, last but not least, we'll look at where you can actually find out all the streams. Not you, BC, but you, the viewer, watching this video. Alright, so let's
do it.
Let's do it, man. So, of course, MLG, I'm on the page right now, MLG. So let's scroll down a little bit. You can find all this stuff. Actually, I should mention it. Liquipedia, you can go ahead and find that. It's absolutely fantastic website that has all the information about absolutely anything StarCraft related, even outside of StarCraft, but obviously we're all StarCraft nerds. So here we do have the list of MLG Pro Circuit events. This is all the tournaments since the very beginning, 2010 Pro Circuit in Raleigh, which we saw Huck win. But we're looking more specifically at the 2012 series, the 2012 circuit. And one thing I noticed is there hasn't been a Protoss champion this year.
Yeah, very true. I mean, we've had Alicia and First come close twice, or for the past three events, but no Protoss champion. Korean domination, specifically Dongri Gu and Marine King domination, actually.
Yeah, Marine King's got 2 titles in a second place. Dongri Gu's got 2 titles and 2 second places. But most recently, things have been starting to change a little bit. We saw Tasia win the Pro Circuit Summer Arena, and then we saw Lenot most recently win the Summer Championship. But well, it's all up for grabs this coming weekend and who's going to actually win this tournament. So moving on to the next part of this, of course, if you want to follow this and do it yourself, just click this link right here, the 2012 Pro Circuit Fall Championship. Click it and it'll take you to this wonderful page, this sub-page here, which is specifically the tournament happening this weekend. And as we can see, the 2012 Pro Circuit Fall Championship will be held in Dallas, Texas from the 2nd and 4th of November. It is the 4th and final championship event in 2012, the last event, one big bang before 2012 is done, and the prize money, well, kind of portrays that with $76,000 on the line. What do you think about the prize distribution, which we have on the left-hand side?
Yeah, it's a great distribution here. Top 16 do get paid. Pretty top-heavy, though, 25K for first place, so whoever wins that going to be a very happy camper.
Very happy camper. Second place 15. Third and fourth place is actually equal. And for a lot of people wondering, well, why is it equal? Because a lot of the times, especially in the early start of StarCraft 2, there was always tournaments that went semi-final, semi-final. Third and fourth place decided to find out who made the extra money, who got the bronze and not the medal. That makes sense. But nowadays, tournaments, fans, spectators, commentators prefer semi-final. Straight to the big deal, keeps the hype building ready for that grand final. But as you said, top 16, lots and lots of money. And then we look at the maps on the right hand side here that we played out through the weekend. We have Antigua Shipyard, Cloud Kingdom, Daybreak, Into Valley, Metropolis, Shakira's Plateau, and Taldrum Altar. And
actually, a slight correction. This is one of the very few instances where Liquipedia is actually wrong, but MLG actually decided to, after probably like a 2.5-year run in the map pool, they've retired Shakira's Plateau, and replacing that is going to be the current ladder map, Ohana.
And that's why you're my wingman here at BC, fixing my little mistakes. Alright, so moving on to the players, though, this is the interesting part, which everybody wants to know. So, there's actually different ways to qualify for the actual pool play, per se. So, initially, we got seeded, 8 players seeded into pool play via the last Summer Championship, or the previous championship, should I say. First and Hero from IM and Team Liquid. Then we got Tasia SDC Heart from Team Liquid, Quantic, and Complexity. And then Lenok, Violet, and Revival from FX Open, from Azubu and TSL. So 8 players there, who basically just top 8 from the last championship. And then we've got seeded into pool play via 2012 MLG versus Pro League Invitational. We've got Naniwar and Oz, Flash, Major, Sue, Hiver, Solkey, and Vibe. What are your initial thoughts of those 16 players there? especially the Kesper players.
Yeah, I mean, pretty exciting. Of course, Flash is the big name everybody's looking at. I think the MLG versus Pro League results in general are actually quite interesting. Of course, Naniwa qualified through the European section, so that's how he got his spot. Major and Vibe, the two North American names. I think Major has a big shot here to do really well. The Kesper players too, those guys, those are who everyone's going to be watching. I think, as I said, Flash, the big name, but Soulkey is, kind of the original Kesper player who kind of got hyped up hugely. He's done good, but he hasn't done Kesper good. So I think there's going to be a lot of eyes on him to see if he can actually really have that breakout performance this weekend.
Well, anything is possible. So 3 non-Koreans so far out of those top 16. Top 8 last time. I don't know if I think Stefano was like ranked 9 maybe at the championship.
Yeah, he was in the
just
top
short of the mark.
16. I think he might have been 11th, but close.
But top 8 Koreans from the last championship. 3 do come in through the MLG versus Pro League Invitational. Moving on to the next part, of the next 8 players that qualified for group play, was seeded in via the invite-only online qualifier. And Grubby, of course, seems to win every invite-only qualifier that MLG hold. And then we got Daisy and Baby Knight. Actually, I'm very excited to see Baby Knight, who performed extraordinarily well at WCS Nordic Nationals, who performed equally as well at the WCS Europe Finals as well, getting an amazing finish for him. And then we got San Kwansin, Bomber, which is great to see him at another MLG event. And then probably the 2 most important players in this little segment here that everybody has eyes on is, of course, Life, the most recent GSL champion who cruised through that tournament right to the very end. And then we have Scarlet, who I think is, first MLG tournament, if I'm not mistaken. But I think everybody's looking at that, especially you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm Canadian, so I'm excited to see how Scarlet will do. Scarlet also, it's interesting because she hasn't played in these big LAN international tournaments, but she's got a lot of stage experience thanks to WCS Canada and WCS North America. So, her on the big stage is going to be a lot of eyes watching, and I think people are going to be really, really interested to see how she does.
And then after, well, that's 24 players that are seeded into pool play. I'll say it before I go into the sign-ups of the open bracket. But pool play, of course, is pretty much the same like it always has been. A group of players that just play, that have qualified to be right to the very end where Championship Sunday will happen. And we'll go more into detail with that afterwards. But then we have the open bracket, which are players looking to get out of it. 16 players in total who can, and we'll look at that in a minute. But first of all, the players. We have the Australians coming in by force. We have 7 Australians there, and then a bunch of big name signups. For example, JYP, MC. We got Rain, the OSL champion that everyone's been talking about, that's signed up most recently. We got Pult, Thorzane's in there, The Muslims in there, and then going over to the Zerg players, you got Juktu for his recent joining of the team Clarity, who's coming to MLG. Idra, Rhett, Chef. The list is absolutely fantastic. Any names that you like there as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think the 3 big names, of course, Pult, MC, and Rain competing there. Also deserves some attention is Stardust, who is formerly Sun, which is the ex-Kespa player recruited by Light. Just a nice, well-rounded list. I think it's awesome to see the Australian players coming in, a good amount of Americans. Kind of not too heavy on the European front. I guess it's really just Rhett and Thorzane there representing Europe. But nice, well-rounded, a good opportunity for some of these up-and-coming American players to really test themselves out against some of the world's best.
And then let's go down and have a look at the format and how things are actually going to pan out. I'm not going to read through every little bit we have here, but I'll just kind of overview it for you. So the open bracket is a maximum of 208 players. I think they almost fill out the open bracket almost every MLG. Obviously not with top tier players, but with players nonetheless. So a maximum of 208 players, and they will fight through a double elimination. So there's a winner bracket and loser bracket, which we see so often at MLG. And there's only, though, 16 players. The highest open bracket seeds determined by the MLG rank and qualifier result will begin playing in the open bracket round 5. And then, of course, you have the 8 players. So 8 players go into pool play, group play. 8 players go on to the Championship Sunday right at the bottom of the loser bracket, if I'm not mistaken there.
Yep.
Then we have the groups we talked about before, the 8 seeds coming from 3 different angles. MVP Invitational, the invite-only qualifiers, and the Summit Championship from last time. And each of them will, no matter what, be in Championship Sunday in the big bracket. But depending on where they finish, we'll walk through that shortly, will determine where they are landing on that final day. In the championship bracket, we'll go into that in a little bit more detail in a second. So if we scroll down here, we actually see the groups. So before we go into discussing how the groups work, let's have a look who's actually in the group. So in Group A, Lenok, former or previous or two-time MLG champion. He won Providence last year, the final MLG tournament, and this is again the final MLG tournament of the year, but most recently won the previous Summer Championship. We have Vibe the American, San, Oz, Hiver, Hero. What do you think about Group A?
I think it's a really interesting group. Obviously, the first thing that strikes anybody that looks at that group is the lack of Terran, which actually I think works out really well for Vibe. Vibe actually got tooled pretty hard by Major in the MVP tournament, so if he can dodge some Terrans and just kind of stick to ZVZ and ZVP, he might have a good shot. And he's been on fire lately. He qualified through MVP as one of the Americans. He is doing well in NASL as well. But of course, I mean, going up against San as well as the returning champion from the previous MLG is going to be difficult. And one big matchup, it's funny how we kind of ignore Hiva, the Kespa player here, but Hero versus Lenok is a big rematch that we could see happen.
Yeah, a rematch from the GSL when most notably Lenok used every little power he could with the Zerg race and was able to beat out Hero, which for a lot of people that watched that thought that Hero deserved the win, but this time they will have the opportunity to rematch potentially, depending on how this Group A pans out. But a great, strong group to start us off here. But going over to Group B, this is again a lack of Zerg in this group, which a lot of people may enjoy. But we do have Naniwa here, open bracket 1 player. Of course, the open bracket 8 and open bracket 4 from Group A are the players that will qualify through the open bracket. So the 8 players that qualify through the winner bracket of the open bracket, and it gets a little confusing, so stay with me, will be seeded into different groups here depending on where they finish. But we have Naniwa versus somebody, then Huang Xin versus Baby Knight, and I really feel that Baby Knight's going to do well here. He's got excellent PvP for sure. Then Grubby versus Flash, and the SCC versus the open bracket player 5.
Yeah, an exciting group all around. I think Flash is, of course, the huge name. Grubby with a huge fan following. Everybody's going to want to see what happens that match. I'm particularly also interested in Naniwa. Naniwa has been notably absent. He was signed up for some European tournaments, dropped out at the last minute, now has qualified for MLG. So people really want to know how good is he doing. He dropped out of GSL, so he's really kind of been off the radar. And if he doesn't end up having to play Rain or someone else from the open bracket, I think he's got a really good chance to even play Flash in the round 4 match, possibly.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Naniwa's the guy that goes underground and then kind of goes Rocky Balboa style and then comes out a champion again. We'll have to see if he's going to be able to do it here. And then obviously the big match, Grubby versus Flash, if I'm not mistaken. We'll look at the schedule closer afterwards, but will be the first game of the MLG Fall Championship in Dallas. So everybody's going to be wanting to watch that. One of the best from Warcraft 3 versus arguably the best from Brood War. So that's a great group there. And of course, we can't even forget about the STC down there. Kind of undershadowed a little bit by Grubby and Flash, as you can see. But moving on to Group C, we have Violet, another MLG champion, Major, and Life. Life being the GSL champion, or a recent GSL champion, should I say. And then Revival, Sulky, Tasia. Thoughts on this group?
I mean, all these players are just so good. I think, once again, as the one non-Korean, Major's going to get a lot of attention. I know Major versus Life will be broadcast on the mainstream. Very exciting match. Life definitely the big favorite there. Violet there, of course, he's got good ZVZ, so he could take out Life later on. Tasia, after faltering in GSL, all the Liquid fans going to be keen to see how he's doing. And once again, Sulky is that Kespa player who, when the Kespa players first came to MLG, Sulky was the guy who's like, everyone's like, this guy is amazingly good, and he did well, but he didn't knock everyone's socks off. So this is his chance to knock your socks off, Apollo.
We'll see if my socks are staying on while I'm casting or not. But going over to Group D, we have Heart here at the top, who's been performing very well recently. Bomber versus Scarlet. I think that's everyone's kind of eyes immediately zoom over to that one. And that's definitely going to be a classic match. We'll talk about that in a second. And then Daisy against Sue, and then First, who had an amazing couple of MLGs. I think this is his 3rd MLG in a row. He played the arena where he lost initially versus Sortov, fell down the loser bracket, and then killed everyone. It didn't matter who, it was everyone. And then got to the final, unfortunately finished in 2nd. And then he finished 2nd again at the championship. So 2 second-place finishes coming into his 3rd MLG tournament, and that is actually really, really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it's always so stacked. So for him to do that, it's very impressive, but everyone's always got their eyes on the first place prize. But him winning this group, I think he actually has a pretty good chance of winning this group. I think this group might be kind of the most evenly matched, if you will. I think the big underdog coming in here is Daisy, who, of course, has been living in Europe, qualified through the European qualifier, and he's just a really big underdog going up against, of course, the Kespa player, so...
Yeah, I mean, a nickname that Daisy has brought to himself in the European scene is Cheesy Daisy, and we'll have to see how he's going to use that to his advantage in Group D. But going back to Bomber versus Scarlet, do you think Scarlet has what it takes to beat Bomber? I know her Zerg versus Terran is very, very strong.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, Bomber is one of those players, he's kind of inconsistent. You know, sometimes you watch a game of Bomber and you're like, wow, this guy might be the best player in the world. And then sometimes you watch him and you're like, oh, I'm not quite following what he's doing. So I think it depends which Bomber shows up. But I think even if the best Bomber shows up, I think Scarlet is a good chance.
All right, so there are the 4 groups of pool play. We have the players in there as we see, and then 8 players from the winner bracket, open bracket, will be coming to join them to face off, and we'll see how that does pan out. If we scroll down again, we have the championship bracket. We have the championship losers bracket, round 1 to 6. We'll talk about that again in a second. And then the big championship bracket, the winners side, where we have the players that win in group play and pool play coming down. So let's just give a couple examples to clean this up as much as possible. For a lot of people that may not have watched MLG tournaments before, may not know exactly how this works out. So let's just use some very simple examples. We'll use a winner and then a loser. So let's go ahead and say Lenok wins all the way to the group final and then wins the group final. If we scroll down, he immediately gets placed into the championship bracket winners round 1. So at the top here, you have 4 slots in winners round 1. There will be 4 champions from the 4 groups. And as you can see, if I highlight here, the first slot will be winner 1 and winner 2, depending on which group it is. And then the third slot will be winner 3 and winner 4. We'll go right there, and they'll have the opportunity to place directly for the semi-finals. And that's a great position to be in, because even if they lose there, they get another shot in winners round 1 because of the double elimination setup. And I think that was clear and understood out of BC.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the most important point to understand is essentially that the entire tournament is double elimination until that winners round 1. But if you win winners round 1, you make it to the semifinals, and all of a sudden it's do or die. There is no more double elimination, even if you haven't dropped a series. So that's when the stakes really kind of go through the roof.
But to come for that area, the semi-finals do become best of 5, if I'm not mistaken, and the grand final a best of 7. So that's always something to consider. And let's use the other example now. And I don't want to use Hero because we're on Team Liquid's site. So I'm going to use the STC. Let's say the STC loses his first game against open bracket player 5. He would then automatically drop down to this point here, which I'm trying to highlight, basically straight below him. Obviously, a double elimination gets a double chance. If he loses here, though, he then would get directly seeded into championship losers bracket, losers round 1. He'd go here, and he would then face off against one of 8 players that qualify through the open bracket losers bracket. And, you know, like again, there'll be 8 players. This is 16 slots there in losers round 1. 8 players from loser bracket, open bracket, and then 8 players that don't win and lose initially in the pool play that finish last. And if you think about it, as a bracket, it may seem a little bit confusing. As a group, I think it is a little bit easier because you can go ahead and be like, all right, the winner is number 1. Number 1 goes straight up to winners round 1 over here. Number 6 goes to loser round 1. And then in between, for example, 5, 4, 3, 2.
You mean actually
here.
If you place 7th or 8th in your group, you get to losers round 1.
Okay, that's what I meant. 6 to 8 is the same thing. The example still stands. But yeah, so, you know, if you fall last, losers round 1. If you're second to last, losers round 2. Third from last, round 3, and so on and so on. And you keep on climbing up here. And that's how it basically works out with the bracket play. But no matter where you finish, you're going to be in the championship bracket, joined by the 8 players from the loser bracket as well. Any thoughts on the format here as to clear it up?
No, I think you kind of nailed it. We got through this okay. I mean, essentially, what's to remember here is that coming from that open bracket, the top 8 players get into the group stage, and so those bottom 8 players, you know, they're going to be good players, but it's probably not going to be the SKT1 Rain or the or the SKMC. So, you know, it's not the end of the world going down to losers round 1, but of course you have a steep hike, and of course the farther to the left you are in that bracket, the more matches you have to play on Sunday. And so you really want to try and set yourself in deep so, you know, you get more time to relax, you get more time to actually watch your possible opponents play, because, of course, that can give you a big advantage.
Exactly. So even though you could argue that, well, you know, they're going to be on Championship someday anyway, you know, what does it really matter? Well, RWBC just cleaned that up. And now we're going to move on to the next little segment I want to show you, which is the schedule. So if we come down here, you can find the schedule on the MLG website. You can click around, or you can just copy what I've got up here, MajorLeagueGaming.com, and then /news. You can go to their news segment, and then Fall Championship broadcast schedule. And if we just scroll down here a little bit, we actually have the schedule for StarCraft Red and the StarCraft Blue. So there's going to be 2 streams set up. And as we can see, game number 1 of the day here, obviously straight after the Dr. Pepper pre-game show, is Grubby versus Flash.
Pretty good match.
Pretty good match indeed. Bomber versus Scarlet, match 2. Match 3, Oz versus Hiver, Daisy Sue, Major Life, Revival Sulky. There's a lot of good games happening there, and of course the blue stream will be doing other games as well. Most likely some from the open bracket, some from the group play too.
Yeah, if you scroll down further, you can see so far the only ones they've got set are Vibe versus Son and Huangson versus Baby Knight, and the rest will be from open bracket winners round 2. So I would imagine we could expect to see most likely some games from Rain or MC and some of the other really big names in the open bracket.
So 2 streams to choose from. The games will be starting at 5 p.m. CDT, Central something time.
Daylight.
All right, Central Daylight Time. That is why you're on this, man. This is why you're here. Thank you, RWBC. And now let's go ahead and look at the final point over here, which is the MLG Major League Gaming Live. And this is where you can actually find the stream. This is where the stream's going to be, and some other little cool things too that you can look at here at RWBC. You want to fill us in?
Yeah, I mean, primarily if you just take a peek at the top right, you'll see a couple buttons you can mouse over there. You've got the stream button, so you can easily hop. Obviously, the event isn't live yet, so right now it's just listed as StarCraft 2, but there will be all streams there for all games. Primarily the 2 StarCraft streams are what we are interested in. Then, of course, also the chat button if you want to go and troll it up in chat, have some fun there. But more interestingly, of course, is the schedule button, which really should be keeping you updated as to the upcoming matches. Primarily, you know, as we said, that the second stream, only the first 2 matches are set. So as soon as the following matches are decided, you'll be able to see that on the schedule. And I do believe generally there's also a brackets button, so you can go ahead and follow the results. Although, of course, Liquipedia is usually my go-to source for up-to-date brackets.
And as you can see here, great setup, so this is very easy to handle and move around. And this is where the stream's going to be just bang in the middle, and you can obviously choose, like RWBC said, from the 2 streams, the 2 StarCraft streams that will be available. And then if you want to get the HD Pass, there will be a free stream, of course, for everybody. The HD Pass, though, you can go up to the top left, which says here, bought an HD Pass, ? Log in here, and probably you can log in there and go find out how to get it, how to maneuver around. So that seems to be everything for this preview of the MLG Fall Championship. Any last words here, RWBC, before we close it up?
No, I think you did a great job, Apollo.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks for joining me, of course, RWBC. We'll be observing this weekend alongside myself and a bunch of other fantastic casters. Day9's going to be there, DJ Wheat, Total Biscuit, Axlav and Axel Toss will be there as well. And Mr. Bitter, can't forget Mr. Bitter too. Almost did, sorry Mr. Bitter.
You almost did.
Almost did, but I didn't. So those are going to be the commentators for the weekend, and I hope you guys are going to have a fantastic tournament from MLG this weekend. So thanks for watching this video, guys, and we will see you on the battlefield.